Hello. In this video we're going to be covering how to create a rig for a 3D character. This rig is just going to be a very simple one, bare bones, with just some functional IKs as well. But I'll quickly go through what is a rig. So a rig is just a way of moving a 3D character, and they require an armature within Blender, so what we would also call bones. So with these bones, they can hold a lot of different data, but the main one is going to be it contains the move, rotate, and scale information as well, and then it basically acts as a anchor for your mesh to latch onto and allows it to move. But if I quickly just move this out of the way, so there are a couple of terms that you will need to be aware of. So mainly it's going to be what is an FK, what is an IK. So if I just move these up quickly, so an FK is just essentially the movement of the rig. So if I go back into pose mode, it's the movement from a rig going from the base of your bones, and then it's going to the tip of the bones, and this is FK. Okay, so it's forward kinematics. So if I quickly show this, so when I move this bottom bone, the base bone, it'll move the rest of the rig, and then if I could move one up, it'll move the next one in the chain, but it won't move the bottom, and so on and so forth. And that's how you can, that's one of the methods of creating a animation. But there is another method which goes from the tip of the rig, so from this end, and it goes back down to the base, and this is called IKs, inverse kinematics. So it's just going around the opposite way. And then with this particular method, it's just quickly showing you how to I'll just quickly show you what it quickly looks like, so don't worry about following me on this particular bit. This is just purely covering a bit of the theory of how some things work as well. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly create a control bone, remove the parent and everything like that, go into bone constraints, adding in our IK, telling this modifier what rig we're going to be using, what armature, and then what the control bone is. And if I move this now, there it is. That decided to act a bit weird. I had a little bit of a moment there. But as you can see, moving it from the moving the control bone from the tip of the entire rig, it's transferring all of that movement information all the way down to the base and the root of the entire rig, and you can create some really, it's like a scorpion tail as well. But if you can see here that we've got a pole target. Again, this will just help control where our bends are going and everything like that as well. Okay, but let's get into actually rigging this character here. Okay, so first things first, we need to bring in a armature. So at the moment you'll see that I have multiple different options as well. This is mainly because I've got Rigify currently enabled in my add-ons, but all it will look to you as armature, single bone, and that's all you really have. Okay, so quickly going through some of the setup, I'm going to go into edit mode, but first things first, I'm not going to be adding anything like that. I'm just going to go into the data properties here for some quality of life. I'm going to show names, and in under viewport I'm going to show names, and then going to show in front, so no matter where I am, I can see where those bones are. So first things first, I'm going to move this up to roughly where in line with the base with the groin, and then I'm just going to grab the top sphere of this bone and bring it down to roughly where the, well, for me, the buckle or where the belly button is. And then I'm going to press extrude, then Z to make sure it goes along the Z axis, and then again to roughly around the where your rib cage starts in the center of your chest, and then extrude up again to the base of the neck. So I always try to put a little bit of a bend as well, just to make sure everything is in place. There are a couple of other things that we could potentially do to help maintain the structure of our character, but at the moment we'll just keep it bare bones. Then I'm going to create the neck and then create a bone for the head. Okay, just like so. Now with this we're going to need to change the names of these bones, because if we just leave them as bone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth, it gets very complicated. So we need to go into bone properties and rename them. So I'm just going to call this waist, stomach, if I spell anything wrong, well, hey ho, chest, neck, and then head. Okay, so all of these central bones, we don't need to do anything special with them, it's just we can name them as they are. But when we start moving on to the other bones, like going on the other sides, this is where we need to make sure that we get everything correct. Just to also say, should have said this at the very beginning, but try to make sure that your character is facing the front, so -Y. So if you can see, I'm now in -Y, and this is the front orthographic view. Okay, so this is just helps us when we eventually go to symmetrize. Basically, it's a mirror to copy whatever is on our right side or left side and copies it onto the opposite side exactly. Okay, now select your chest. So there's a sphere around between the neck and the chest, and then go into this view and then extrude to the shoulder and put it to where the shoulder would start twisting and rotating, the actual pivot point of where your shoulder would rotate. Then extrude to the elbow and then extrude to the wrist, like so. Okay, then I'm going to put in, make sure there is a slight bend to your elbow, because this will affect your rig and how the bones will bend with the IKs, because if it doesn't, if you don't have that bend, the IK won't know how to move it, so on and so forth as well. Okay, so I'm going to make sure I'm going to extrude this along the palm as well. So this is just going to control our hands. I'm not going to do a hand rig on this particular video. I'll do that in a separate one, because then I will also cover drivers in that particular one. This is just showing how to quickly set up a basic rig. Okay, so then now this is the important bit. Okay, so I'm going to name this shoulder, but this is the left side of the character. So let me just quickly rotate. So we write our names to the perspective of the character, not to our perspective. Okay, keep that in mind. Okay, so I'm going to put in shoulder, but I'm going to put at the very end .L, so capital L. Okay, I prefer to use capitals because it's just easier to see and understand. Then I'm just going to call this upper arm. If you are going into more complicated, that's not a dot. If you're going into more complicated rigs, then you probably want to rename the bones to the actual bones within the human body and skeleton. But right now, I'm just going for simplicity. Okay, and as you can see, every new word I am putting in, so like upper is capital U, but arm is capital A. It just makes things a little bit easier to read. And then I'm going to call this palm.L. Okay, so once you've done that, fantastic. If you need to pause the video and just catch up, go ahead. I'll just quickly keep it in this particular view so you can see all of the different names, and then you can pause it here as well. Okay, but now, since we are going to be extruding the bones from the waist, we're going to be essentially extruding from the root, so there will be no parent. For if I go into pose mode now, I can rotate this and it'll bring the arm with us. But if we go and extrude from the waist now, and these are going to be our hips, so making sure I'm in the correct view, I'm going to extrude up to roughly where the hip joint would be and where the pivot point of that hip would actually start moving, and then I'll rename this hips.l. But if I go into pose mode now, it doesn't rotate with the rest of the rig. Okay, this is because if we go into the right data, it's not currently parented to anything. So we need to make sure we select the hips first, then select the waist. So the waist is the active element in this. Then we can press Ctrl P to make a parent, or if you don't like using the shortcuts, you can right click, parent, make, which is Ctrl P, keep offset. Keep offset. There we are. Now, whenever I go into pose, grab the waist, it brings the waist, the hips with me. Now that is done, okay, select the sphere of the tip of the hips, and now in your front view, we're going to extrude down to where the knee is, and then extrude down to where the heel is. Okay, then going into the side view, and again making sure there is that very noticeable bend that we need. Okay, then from here we're going to extrude twice and make some slight adjustments to where we need to move things, and now we are going to start renaming everything again. So this is again keeping everything quite simple. Upper leg dot L, lower leg dot L. I'm going to call this foot dot L, and then I'm going to name this toes dot L. Okay. Now, before we go and symmetrize, we might as well create all of the necessary control and grab points for our for animation. So, okay, but just be aware and make sure that we follow these steps, because again, if you're not careful, you can cause some issues in the future. Okay, so let's start off with the palm. Okay, so I'm going to extrude it on the y-axis away, so to pointing the front. So extrude Y, I'm going to move this forward, and this is going to be our control bone. So I'm going to keep this as lower arm, remove the numbers and that dot, move it between your cursor between the lower arm dot L, so move it between that, so it's going to be control, so it should read as lower arm control dot L. Okay, and then we need to make sure that we remove the parent and then untick deform. Okay, so we're making sure that this bone is not connected to the rig, so whenever we move the waist, the control bone is not moving, and also deform, that just stops from the rig, the mesh being attached to that particular bone. Okay, because this is the bone that we're going to use as our main handle. Now we're going to go into our elbow and do the exact same, but we're going to point it away from, towards the back. And this one, again, remove the parent, remove the deform, left click off of it to confirm those changes, then select it again and move it away a good distance away from the main body, like so, because these are going to be where the elbow is going to be pointing at. So whenever we move it, we can basically create that chicken wing motion. Okay, but we're going to rename this to upper arm target dot L. Okay, So we got our control bone, and then we got our target bone. We're going to do the exact same down here, but it's just going to be a little bit different. But again, same method. So we're going to extrude it from the heel of the foot. Again, remove the parent, untick deform, and this is going to be our control bone. So we're not going to be moving this one. Okay, like so. And then going to get the target bone from the knee. Those knees are very low. Hey ho. Going to extrude this out on the y-axis. Again, remove the numbers, make sure that .L is the last thing there, and get, so this is going to be called upper leg target, upper leg target .L. Okay, and again, remove the parent, untick deform, then go and move that away from the main body. Okay, so now that this is all done, I am going to quickly, so now everything should have .L at the very end. I'm just going to put it into this view so you can clearly see all the basic name, no, not basic names, all the names. So then now you can pause it here, make sure and double check everything as well. Okay, now select your entire rig, right click, then we should see under armature, you should see symmetrize. So we've got mirror, snap and symmetrize right here. Select that, and this is why you should be in your character should be facing -Y, because it has now essentially perfectly mirrored and copied all of our bones over. So now you can see .L is now .R. Okay, it makes things so much easier to rig and animate. Okay, so don't follow me on this particular thing, on this particular bit. I'm just going to re-parent this back together, okay, because I want to quickly show you what happens when you might forget to create a parent, or sorry, remove the parent from your one of your control bones. Okay, but we're going to first of all go through the arm as well. So this should be, or adding the IKs should go onto the bone that is right next to where your control bone is going to be. Okay, so we need to go into pose mode now to access our bone constraints. Make sure it is bone constraints, not just constraints. Okay, selecting our lower arm, we need to go into our add bone constraints. Under tracking, we should see inverse kinematics. Select that, and that should change the color of your bones. Okay, and you should see a line, a dotted line, going from the tip of that bone, the bone that we have selected, all the way to the essentially the root. Okay, which is the waist. Okay, so just think of this, all of these bones and the path as links in a chain. Okay, all of these bones are links to a chain. Okay, so currently when we add our target, so the target is the armature, so we're telling the IK this is affecting this armature, this rig. Okay, then the bone is going to be our control bone, basically our handle, so our main point where we're going to grab and then move the body around. Okay, so now we should be able to test this and see if it works. Okay, now there's a reason for this, that is doing all of these motions, because it's taking all of the chain and it's going all the way down to the root bone, to the root. Okay, so we need to basically tell the armature that, okay, you're only affecting certain bones, or certain number of bones. So from chain length is currently 0, we just want to tell it, okay, I want you to affect 2 chains in this link, or in this length. So now when we move this, it's just affecting our upper arm and lower arm. Okay, we don't want it to go for 3, because if your shoulder moves like this, I'll be very, very worried. Okay, so anyway, so the pole target is again where the bend is going to be focusing. So, but before we go on any further, I'm going to go into object mode. I'm going to select the entire model and make sure that the rig is the active element into this, as well as the active, because we're going to parent all of these meshes to the rig. Okay, so parent with automatic weights. So now when we go into pose and I move my rig around, it moves all of the mesh. Okay, I will do a separate video on weighting, basically straight after when we've completed this. All we're doing is just focusing on getting the armature and rigs set up. Okay, but first of all, we need to basically, currently we have the ability to move our arm around, but at the moment we can't really point where the elbow is going. So that will be where the pole target comes in, and our target bone. Again, informing the rig, informing the IK, we are using the rig to navigate and find our target bone. Then we select our target bone as well. Sometimes it will just change the angle as well, but all we need to do is just change the pole angle so it looks like it's just been twisted by 90 degrees. So all we're going to do is put in 90, see how that looks. Okay, well, that kind of backfired, so at the moment we just need to change it to -90 instead, and that will perfectly fix what we've got. Ish. Okay, we might just need to do some slight adjustments here and there. Okay, and now when we bend our arm, it's bending exactly how we want our arm to work, but now we have complete control of where that elbow is going. Okay, so that is how you quickly set up your IK. Now let me quickly show you what happens, and hopefully this will work. Okay, I'm just going to quickly go through this and show you. Okay, you don't need to follow me exactly. Okay, and then change chain length to 2, and then let's see how this goes. Okay, so if this starts happening, where let's say the rig is kind of trying to do an Irish jig. Okay, right now it's purely because the IK is trying to move the object around, but it's conflicting with itself because of the parent relation. But this is an easy fix. We don't need to remove any, we don't need to undo anything with the IKs. All we need to do is click remove the parent of that in that under the relations chat tab on the bone properties, then go back into pose, and then voila, it works. Okay, and that also works with the knee target bone as well. Okay, so I'll go through that again a little bit slower. Again, bone constraints, making sure that I'm grabbing the lower leg, the one that is basically connecting with the control bone. Then we're going to inverse kinematics. Okay, we're targeting the armature, grabbing the control bone. Then we're going to go to the pole target, grab the tell the IK what rig we're using, and then focus and tell it on, or give it the target bone that it's going to need to focus on and bend towards. Then we're going to give it the chain length, and right now it looks like this guy needs surgery, but right now the simple surgery is change the pole angle to 180, and then that fixes that. And you can see that it's pointing our bone exactly where we want it to. Okay, then one more time. Again, inverse kinematics, armature, our control bone. Nope, misclicked. So again, let's do that again. Armature, control bone, armature again, target bone, set chain length to 2, or how many bones that you want. Again, this guy looks like he needs a bit of surgery. Have a bit of a play around. Okay, it looks like it's going to be -90 again. Mostly fixed. then we're just changing the value so it all fits exactly how we want it, and then give it a quick test. Yep, that's how I want it to move, like so. Okay, so that is why we put the bends into our rigs, so it knows exactly where to point. If we keep it all straight, it will lock into position, and it will look like you're like you can't just move your elbow. It's just locked into place, and it'll just like go up and down, and the only pivot point will be the shoulder. So that's why we add in our bends in the elbows and knees, so just to prevent that and basically give that little bit of extra information to the IK, saying okay, this is the way I am going to bend, and everything like that as well, and it keeps everything nice and happy. Okay, but that is going to be it for this particular video. This is just helping you just to create a simple rig, a simple setup, so you can now pose and basically begin animating. But I will go into weighting in a different video, because that is an entire different subject that I would need to talk about. Okay, so I hope you found this useful. Again, if you have any comments, please pop them down into the comments section, and I hope that all of you have a good day. Toodaloo.